Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukutali.
Hello there, a very good morning and welcome to Friday's edition of Newsline. We're coming to you live and direct from our Newsfirst studios here in Colombo. My name is Sonali Wanigabadage, and joining us in our studio are two very special guests. They are the co-founders of the Trail initiative. Let's say good morning to them. Good morning, Nathan.
Good morning, Sonali.
And good morning, Sarinda.
Good morning, Sonali.
Nathan Sivagananathan and Sarinda Unambua are our guests today. And Nathan, how did this initiative begin?
I lost my sister to cancer in 2006, and on the way back from the UK where she died, I was thinking what the status of the cancer situation was in Sri Lanka. When I was back here, I went to Maragama, and I was dismayed by the infrastructure that they had and the number of people that they had to serve. So it was during the war, so we helped the Maragama hospital first. And one of the key things that was needed was to really have infrastructure set up around the country, and especially in the north, during the war, people had to take boats and come down with their families and live in Colombo, and they really struggled because even the slightest chemotherapy, they had to come down to Colombo. So infrastructure was the best cause, and when Sarinda, who had an idea for walking the country from the south to the north, because he made a promise if the war ever ends that he will do that. Actually, he said with barefoot, but he never did it with barefoot. But he made that promise, and so one day I just walked up to him and said, look, if you're serious about this, I'll walk with you. And that's how it all kicked off.
Sarinda, what is the Trail campaign all about?
It's two causes coming together, really. It's one, I want to celebrate a united Sri Lanka as soon as the war was over. I had made a promise to some friends of mine that should the war end, that I would walk from Mathura to Jaffna. As Nathan said, I'd said I'd do it barefooted. That didn't last too long. But it was that as well as a cancer hospital coming together, because when we were planning on doing the walk, we needed a cause for it. Somebody said, why don't you do it for a cause? And I was shopping around for a cause, and when Nathan came and made his suggestion that we do it for a cancer hospital, it made perfect sense. You know, it was just the ideal thing to bring together. And the success of the first walk was ample testimony to the fact that we made the right call.
Also, multi-stakeholders are joining in with this initiative. Newsfirst is also providing the media sponsorship and joining in as a partner for this initiative. How has the response been from Sri Lanka across the board?
I think the first walk and the second walk have been two very, very different things. The first one was very difficult. We were trying to get people on board, trying to convince people that we were actually going to do this. It was very difficult. I think they took one look at Nathan and myself and thought, these two fuckers are never going to walk across Sri Lanka. But the second one, because of the success we had in the first walk and the fact that we built a hospital, and it's there for everybody to see, the second walk has been amazing. The support that we have got from all walks of life. I mean, people from corporate Sri Lanka, we've got major sponsors that have come on board, as well as the general public. Everybody has stepped up. Last time we could barely find people to walk at the start, but then gradually as we started walking, we had massive crowds joining us. This time the indication is there are 40 people who have already registered to walk the entire length. Walking 28 days, an average of 24 kilometers a day, it's not easy. It's about 4.5 to 5 hours of walking every day, and it takes a huge toll on your body.
Now then, if our viewers who are watching us this morning also want to contribute to this endeavor, how could they be a part of this?
So one of the key concepts that we had from the beginning was really to crowdsource and fund itself. So we wanted as many people in Sri Lanka and overseas to join the walk. So you don't have to walk the whole 28 days like the crazy two of us who are trying to do it. But you can do a segment which is 3 days, or you can do 1 day. And there are people who are doing virtual walking as well. They're signing up and saying, look, I want to virtual walk some distance. And the concept is, if you get on the website, sign yourself up, you basically send the emails out to your friends saying, I'm doing this walk, can you sponsor me? I'm doing it for this reason. It's almost a personalized, curated website for yourself. And what we've seen is anybody who signs up onto the website is easily able to collect about 10,000 rupees under their name. So first thing is, if you can get onto www.trailsl.com and sign up, I think that's the first thing. And second thing is just sending out mails to their friends. And third thing is just enjoying the walk, because it's 28 days. And I'll tell you, the biggest experience we've had was people that we met on the road as we walked, experiences from other walkers, and also to find that Sri Lanka is not different, whether you're from the south or the north or central. It was the same. And that same generosity of people on the road is amazing. Last time, the only arguments Harinder and I have ever had was on a till. So I called him up one day and said, I would like to carry a till as we walk, and maybe we can collect some money. And he told me in no uncertain terms that it was a very silly idea. I said, look, I want to do it. He said, all right, go ahead and do it. We raised about 7.9 million rupees on the road in those 27 days that time. And people participating on the road was the greatest thing that we could have had. We had about 30,000 people walk with us, whether it was one day or a segment or the whole thing. But that's the participation we want, because we want everybody to be part and parcel of building this hospital, not just a few corporates or individuals.
Sarinder, I'd like to draw on something that Nathan said. The generosity of the Sri Lankan people is something that is very profound. We ourselves are experiencing that with the Gammadda campaign, with an entire country coming together to contribute, to be a part of building Sri Lanka. So this is a cause that is very close to the hearts of a lot of people, because a lot of people in Sri Lanka have been personally affected by cancer, either themselves or a loved one being affected. How do you see these acts of generosity in Sri Lankans?
From the day we started all the way to the end, there were incidents that made us cry. I mean, it was so touching in terms of the random people who walked up to us and gave us support. From little children, there was one little kid who had just come back from chemotherapy at the Mahargama hospital. She had no hair on her head, and she wanted to know what this was about. And when she heard it was for a cancer hospital, she ran into her house and came back with her piggy bank. Then there was another lady who was selling bananas out of a cart, and she was pushing her cart and going. That must have been her earnings for, if not the day, probably the week. And she asked in Sinhala, she said, "Koheda puthe, mokadda me karanne yanne? What are you going to do?" And then when we told her that we were planning on building a cancer hospital in Maharagama, she just stood there and started distributing bananas to all the walkers. So these were just two incidents. Every single day, when we were walking past Valigama, the fishermen were coming back from their night out at sea. And early morning, one guy just walked off the beach and onto the road and said, "What are you doing?" He asked me, and I said, "We are going to walk to Jaffna to build a hospital there." He said, "You're not going to walk to Jaffna?" I said, "Yes, we are." And then he ran back, took his hat off, and collected any coins, any money that anybody had that were coming off the fishing boats, and came and gave it to us. So that kind of random act, there were people tossing money out of buses when they heard what we were doing. So it wasn't just a case of them not knowing and reacting. It was a case of them reacting to the cause, and they were well aware that it was going to be in the north, and this was fresh after the war. There were a lot of wounds that hadn't healed yet, and it made absolutely no difference. It made no difference that the hospital was going to be in the north. Now, there are many naysayers that said that we were going to have problems in the south, but there was absolutely no indication of that at all.
Now then, can you also tell us when a few people get together and try to initiate a cause this big, and you try to involve the entirety of Sri Lanka? There's the Sinhalese, the Tamils, the Muslims, the Burghers, all communities coming together. How did that feature in your initiative?
Well, first of all, Sarinder being a Sinhalese Buddhist and me being a Tamil Hindu itself shows that we were doing it for the cause and not because of ethnicity or location. And we were very keen from the beginning, even though Sarinder blamed, my mother blamed Sarinder for wanting to walk back. We were very clear that we needed two hospitals because the south also is catered to by everybody from all the way from Arugambe to Ratnapura to Gaul is serviced by this one hospital in Gaul. So we knew that we needed the infrastructure. So when you're trying to get people together, it's not easy convincing everybody, because some corporates obviously have their own CSR projects to come on board for this particular cause. And we understand. I mean, first few times we didn't understand. We were very hurt. But we understand that each corporate has got their own initiative. But the idea was that we should get as many people to participate in the walk, and the way that we went around was getting the schools to participate, getting corporates to walk one day, and some corporates are sponsoring the individuals to walk the whole thing. And they're saying, we will combine and match whatever money you're collecting, we'll match it as well. Then we're also getting people like the military to help us walk through there. And also the companies are also creating events for the day. So there are at the end of each day there are events that each of the corporates are organizing. And that's how we're sending out buses and also vans ahead of us to tell about the walk to the next town. So we have been able to sort of get the message out through media like yourselves to people to join the walk.
We are in conversation with Sarinda Unambua and Nathan Sivaganathan. We'll be back after a short commercial break. Stay with us.
Newsline with Faraz Shaukat.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us on Newsline, we're in conversation with Nathan Sivaganathan and Sarinda Unambua, co-founders of Trail. Before the break, we were talking about the importance of having an initiative like this. How do you prepare for a walk that takes 28 days to complete, Nathan?
Well, as you can see from the size of the two of us, if we can do it, half of Sri Lanka should be able to do it. But we have been having some practice walks. We've been encouraging people to come out and walk a few hours. You should try and train up a little bit. But the whole plan is, I mean, as long as your feet are good and you get some good pair of shoes, walking the road is not too bad. There's obviously the heat from the ground and the heat from the top. So getting yourself used to that is very important. So try and walk for a few kilometers, then increase it by a little bit. So do about 5, then do 10, and try and get up to about 20. And your sort of muscles start understanding what you're trying to do, and that's the biggest thing. And most importantly, drink a lot of water as you walk, because dehydration is #1 cause for failure. So I'll drink water and just practice a few days. It'll take you about a week to get into rhythm, and we suggest that you do that before you come on the walk, and participate in an area that you really haven't been to, because there's so much of beauty around the country as well that a lot of people are just choosing to make it a holiday for themselves as well.
Sarinda, let's talk a bit about the end product of this entire initiative, which is the building of a hospital. So one has already been built in Telepile, Jaffna,
That's
right?
Yes.
Okay. So can you just brief us about that?
It's a 120-bed hospital. Nathan is best qualified to talk about the technical aspects of that, so maybe Nathan should
So it's a 120-bed hospital, male, female, and also a pediatric ward. It culminated with a private-public partnership with the Health Ministry. So we raised about $5 million, $2.6 million in cash and $2.4 million in kind. And the government matched that, and they put in the machinery needed. It has serviced over 4,000 patients since we opened it in 2014. It's got over 50 staff, including oncologists, and it's probably the next best equipped hospital after Maragama. So that was the result. And to be honest, for us, walking was one part, then seeing the building come up was the second part. But until we saw the first patient in that hospital getting treatment, that was the day that the penny dropped, that we had actually done something. And for us, it wasn't about Sarinda or myself. It was more about, if we could save one person's life, the whole walk of 670 kilometers up to the north would have been worthwhile.
Sarinda, going forward, this campaign this year hopes to build a hospital in Karapitia, in the south of Sri Lanka.
Yes.
What are the logistics there?
So the Karapitia hospital right now has an existing cancer ward. But what's happened is that given the demand of from the patients, it just can't cope. So what we are doing is creating or building a new hospital to cope to be able to cope with that demand. There is an existing plan that the government already has, and so what we're going to do is take that and put that into, make that happen. We are planning on raising $5 million this time in cash and kind, so in some, as much as possible in cash, because that goes to construction. But then there's a lot of hospital equipment that is needed as well, so we've got a list of that, and that's on the website as well. So people can either come with cash contributions or with donating specific pieces of equipment that are needed for the hospital. It's going to be a larger hospital than what we did in Telepale, simply because the demand is higher.
Let's talk about the cause itself, cancer. The amount of patients suffering from cancer in Sri Lanka is rapidly increasing due to all sorts of factors. Nothing is really being done to address this. How do you view this, Nathan, in a sort of holistic line? We are not looking at cancer, we're just looking at chemotherapy, radiotherapy, but all the other aspects are excluded.
Right. I think the health ministry is actually getting some machinery down and have already got some machinery, which are like the linear accelerators and brachytherapy, which are much more precision medicine that you can give. The increase of cancer, I mean, Maragama Cancer Hospital services about 125,000 people a year, and if I just gave you the number for Jaffna, it's about 4,000. In the south, it's about 13,000, going up to 15,000 this year. So one of the key things of cancer is that you can't really define where it's coming from or how it's coming, but there are certain simple things that do cause it. One is obviously the fertilizer and pesticides that we're using. And secondly, of course, we did have a war in the north, and there was a lot of armor that was used in that war, so there is an increase because of that. The critical thing is to really have awareness and check yourself regularly, especially for females. There are certain types of cancer that's more common. So one thing that we're doing on this walk is we're actually handing out leaflets about awareness, about how do you check yourself. So we've actually printed around 30,000 booklets in both languages to pass that around as we walk in those neighborhoods. Because I think that's the number one thing, it's the awareness of cancer, and number two is the regular check, especially with females. It has to be once a month. And that's the only way that we can currently stop cancer. We probably do not have the resources to find a cure, but I think there is some Ayurvedic medicine that's there. There's some health and wellness ideas that people are testing out. Those are the things that will probably find a solution. But if you look worldwide, there isn't a solution completely developed.
Sarinder, what's the importance that research and development has to play in Sri Lanka in reducing the incidence of cancer?
Personally, I feel it's twofold. One, try and find the cause, and then two, try and find a cure once somebody has been afflicted by the disease. The cause is probably the easier one, because I think there's a lot of common sense involved there as well. For example, what Nathan said about pesticide and weedicide and that kind of stuff that's being used. So try and minimize consumption of that. But in most cases, we don't have access to organic food and the likes, unfortunately. However, a lot of people have home gardens, and I think not using that kind of chemical in home gardens is probably a starting point. The other thing, obviously, is to cut down on or eradicate completely things like smoking and other kind of pollutants that you're putting into your body. Fast foods is another terrible thing that we keep abusing our body with. For us being big abusers of that, we have to admit. But it's a lifestyle choice. I think a lot of lifestyle changes need to be taken, especially with kids. You see a lot of kids there now who are on a massive diet of fast foods, and that is really a terrible thing for you to do to your child.
We are in conversation with Nathan Sivagananathan and Sarinder Unampur. We're going for another commercial break. We'll be right back.
Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukat.
Good morning and welcome back to Newsline. Nathan, during the walk, you said there were the random acts of kindness that you guys were experiencing throughout the walk. Also, let's talk a bit about the cancer survivors themselves.
Yes.
What are their stories?
I mean, it's very touching. There was a child in the north who had got treated through the hospital that we have built, and to hear them in their words, if this hospital wasn't there, they don't think they'll be here today. There were so many children that have been treated in that hospital. And honestly, we're not the heroes of this or anything else. It's the whole of everybody who participated in that hospital, who built that hospital. But the heroes are actually the doctors and nurses in that hospital. They do so much of work. Actually, they make it a home. We put a building up. And the kindness that they show towards the patients, the time that they have, is unbelievable. I don't think Sarindo or myself have the patience of those doctors. And they're the real angels that are helping them. And the stories that are basically, a lot of them had to go down to Maragama, which is a 7-8 hour journey for a lot of them. And it's not a one-day journey, so it's a disruption in their family lives. So here now they're able to get chemotherapy or therapy or linear accelerated treatment straight away. And a lot of the patients now, we have almost something like 300 OPD patients that come in and out every day, which wasn't possible earlier. And the environment that we've created is not like a hospital. I mean, if you walk there and there wasn't a hospital sign, you probably thought it was a hospital or hotel, because that's the way that we created that environment, even for the kids. And I think that those are the things, the small things that we can do to make it easier for them, is really what the stories of Trail is.
I think there's a huge psychological aspect as well, because if the people in the north had to come to Maharagama, they had to leave their homes and come find places to stay in, and that disruption was a huge negative. Now a lot of them get outpatient treatment and go home. So when they are among their families and when they are taken care of in a familiar surroundings, it has a massive positive impact on the individual as well.
Right. Also, Sarinda, cancer has with it a lot of stigma attached, whether we want to accept it or not. For example, if you lose your hair as a result of radiotherapy or chemotherapy, then that element of stigma is there. How do we as a society become more inclusive to this, and how do we educate our children, our elders, to embrace this?
As a Buddhist, we are brought up in this whole karmic thing that's thrust upon us from childhood. I believe that is one thing that we have to start not taking seriously. Cancer can affect anybody. People who do good, people who do bad, whatever. And I don't think it's something to be ashamed of. I think we should be proud of people who are fighting it, and proud of the people who have the courage to go through that and walk out with a bald head. Well, my bald head has nothing to do with cancer, thankfully, but I don't think it's something that we should be looking down upon. I think something we should be celebrating, and something we should be really paying a lot of respect to. These are true fighters. These are people who are fighting every day to survive. And it's really sad if society looks down upon people like that or thinks of them as unfortunate. I think they are, yes, unfortunate to have been afflicted with the disease, but absolutely courageous to be fighting the disease.
Newsfirst is also partnering with Trail. We're working with Nathan and Sarinda with regard to the Trail campaign. We also have initiated the Gum at the 100-day program, which has seen an outpouring of relief, of smiles, laughter across the island. Nathan, how do you view this as a person who initiated a campaign like Trail? How do you view the Gum at the campaign? I
think it's a fabulous campaign. I mean, I went through the final report that the university has put in. It's a large report, takes a long time to read it, but I've read most of it. And it's an amazing story. I mean, to see that some people still think that there are former presidents running this country from 20 years ago in certain villages. We have to help in getting poverty out of Sri Lanka, and this particular program, I believe, will eradicate poverty, and we as corporates would participate in doing that. And I think it's important for all of us to get together and, the whole thing about the 1% of the population versus the 99%, we need to get everybody into that same playing field. And the only way of doing that is through programs like yours, and also through adding technology to some of these areas and giving them the right tools to be able to live a common daily life of the rest of the world. But honestly, it's a great program, and we're very happy to participate and support that as well. And I think it's important to eliminate that poverty in this country.
Sarinder, just like Nathan, you two are an entrepreneur and innovator. How do you view the Gammadha program, which has a lot to do with bringing communities together, working towards a common cause, to alleviate poverty, to empower the citizenry? How do you view this?
I echo Nathan's words, one. And two, I think it's a duty on our part to be able to bring the entirety of Sri Lanka onto one playing field. It's sad that some of us can just turn our back on people less fortunate, and when we could help, we don't. And this is a great vehicle that the entirety of the country can start helping each other. There is nothing that gives me more satisfaction than seeing people coming together for a common cause and seeing that a success. What we saw on trail is just a microcosm of what can be achieved in this country, because Sri Lankans are very passionate people. Sri Lankans are very caring people, and if there is a cause that invokes that passion in them and brings out that passion in them, you could be guaranteed that it's going to be a success. So this is a fantastic program, and after trail maybe we can be a part of that as well.
Absolutely.
Participate in whatever way we can.
And one thing that I would say is that we have this saying that people who don't have much in life are much more generous. And we saw that every single day, whether it was a villager, whether it was a beggar who gave 1 rupee to us. The people who don't have much are the most generous on the roads. And that is a trust system that they have.
And kids.
And that's something that we as a country should not lose, because you don't have that in many other parts of the world.
The number of kids that helped us on the walk was incredible. I mean, at that age, I don't think I would have parted with my piggy bank for anything. But, these kids would just come out with their tills and just give us the tills.
We're on to our last minute on the show, so just for the benefit of our viewers, let's tell them when the walk will take place and how they can log on to the website.
Sure. So the walk is from the 6th of October, starting in Point Pedro, finishing up in Matra on November 2nd. They can participate by getting on the www.trailsl.com website or through Facebook. They can follow us on that, or Instagram. The most important thing is for them to try and participate in some form. They can go into the local bank and donate as well to the website. And I would say that we have we have a surprise for everybody, is that Mahela and Kumar are going to be walking. And Mahela's walking the whole distance, and Kumar's walking most of the distance. So it's a great thing for them as well. After retirement, they promised they'll walk with us, and they kept their promise. They're real true gentlemen to be supporting us. So I think the most important thing is try and get on the website and try and join at least for a day. You don't have to walk the whole distance.
The route is mapped on the website, so you can join at any point on the website.
All right. Thanks very much,
Thank you.
Sarinder and Nathan, for joining us this morning on Newsline. With that, we wrap up this edition. Enjoy your weekend. Bye.